Hello, everybody, and welcome today to our Ascended Master series. And today I have Marina from Heartcentered Tarot.
Hello,
Welcome,
everyone.
Marina. And she is going to talk to us about the Ascended Master, who is a more modern master named Saint Padre Pio. So without further ado, I will turn this over to her.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here, Ali. This is wonderful. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed getting some background information on Padre Pio. I was first sort of exposed to him years ago, and I'd forgotten, by a friend of mine who said her whole family prayed to Padre Pio for anything that was really, really important. And she had mentioned, yes, she was going in for heart surgery, and she was saying, "Oh, Marina, please pray to Padre Pio." And I had sort of forgotten it. It was in the back of my head. And then when it came up again, I thought, yes, of course. It felt very natural. He really, truly was a living saint, very much so. He came from very, very humble beginnings. He was the sixth child of farmers, barely making it. He was also, because the family was so poor, he was initially denied an education because it was necessary for him to work on the farm. And he had decided, because his family was very, very, very devoted to the Catholic Church, he had decided at age 5 that he was going to commit his life to the church. And he tried when he was a little older. He was about 10 or 11, I think, when he tried to join in with the Capuchin monks or friars. And was told that no, he didn't quite qualify because he wasn't educated. And basically, I think what that meant was you're illiterate.
Right.
You can't read or write, and if you can't read, you can't read the mass and the. So anyway, they sent him away, and he was able to find a tutor. And in the evenings and any spare time that he had, he became educated. So at 15, he went back to the monastery, friary. I'm not sure what they're called anyway. And he was accepted. And that was in Capuchin Franciscan Friars of Marconi in Italy. And he chose the name Friar Pio because he was actually born Francesco Fargione.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, on May 25th, 1887, and which oddly enough, when I did the numerology for that, it came out as a 9.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And oddly enough, the day of his death comes out as an 11. Okay. So I thought, okay, I mean, I think that his future was determined for him from the moment he was born. Yeah, he had one older brother, 3 younger sisters, and there was 2 other children who had died in infancy. So he, wasn't there when they were around. So anyway, he was ordained a priest in 1910 at the Cathedral of Benevento in southern Italy.
You said it better than I could.
And when I wrote this all up and printed it out, for some reason it went to a default font, which is about this.
Oh, sure, about this big.
Naturally. Anyway, part of his life, he was extremely sick. He would come down with these fevers that were so high that often, the friars around him thought that his death was imminent because the fevers were so high, and they would come down and so on. And while he was in the friary, he said that he battled the devil most nights in his room. Okay. And the other friars were saying that yes, they could hear the noise coming from the room, and very often they would notice that he was full of bruises. So, yeah, shivers up the spine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, he did join. Well, he was called up for the First World War. He was called into the 10th Command for the Italian Medical Corps. Okay. And he was there for a very short period of time because, of course, he was sick. He would get high fevers, and they could never determine the cause, exactly what it is, but they knew that this man was sick. So so they let him go. They recalled him back in 1917, and the same thing happened, and so they just gave him a full medical discharge, and that was that. And I think it was shortly after that he developed the stigmata, which is, the wounds of Christ.
On his hands, right? It's
on his hands and his feet.
And his feet, as though he had been impaled by the nails on the cross?
Yeah. Okay. He had the 5 wounds of Christ.
Of Christ? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Wow. And he kept it secret. This was something that he never wanted anyone to know, because it was something that apparently he had prayed for, that he wanted to suffer as Christ did, not only for Christ, but also for his parishioners and so on. So he hid the stigmata. He would wrap things around his arms and whatnot. And the other friars noticed that he was having some difficulty walking, and how come he's not moving as well as he used to? And anyway, after some prodding, he did admit to having the stigmata, and that sort of led to a lot of poking and prodding, of course.
Sure.
And people in the church who didn't like the fact that you got to prove it to me. You prove to me that it's real. Well, there's the wounds and they're bleeding.
Right. And they don't go away, I don't think, do they?
Yeah,
they just keep doing it.
They just keep. So how is it possible that this guy who's constantly, bleeding and anyway, so there was a lot of questions and a lot of things. And because this was something that he wanted to keep private. This was something between him and his God. He didn't want to share it. And he was, because the church kind of didn't look kindly upon all this, and he wasn't willing to be sort of a showpiece for the church, if you will, excuse me. So as a result, he was forbidden from saying Mass publicly. He could say Mass privately, and it was over 10 years that he could not say Mass publicly. Wow. And part of it, I think, was to perhaps shame him into going along, but he's very devoted to his cause, to his mission, to so on. Wow. There were many, many miracles that were attributed to him, even while he was alive. That it became difficult for those around him and the hierarchy in the church to ignore the fact that this man was something special. Right. And he had just as few examples. There was a woman who had given birth. Her child was sickly, and she prayed and prayed and prayed, and anyway, the child died. So she put the baby in a suitcase and traveled up to see Padre Pio. And she waited in line. She moved different parts of the church trying to get his attention and so on. She finally ended up sort of with him in front of her. And he said, okay, you're in front of me, you're to the right of me, you're to the left of me. What can I do for you? What is it? And so, she told him that, look, I prayed to you to save this infant. And, it's dead. And he said, well, where is he? So she gave him the suitcase, and he opened up the suitcase. And he lifted up the baby, who is now breathing, and said, your child was merely sleeping. Those are just some examples.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. And he was, just a second. I had it down here because there was the things that were attributed to him. Some of the most astonishing spiritual gifts that he had, of course, was the stigmata, bilocation, being in two places at the same time.
I know.
Yeah. Healing, prophecy, and the ability to read souls. And yes, absolutely.
He could also levitate, I heard.
Yes.
He could levitate. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
And those, he was just so saintly. He was, no matter how much pain he was in, he was always kind to everyone.
Right.
And he delivered his messages and his healings and whatnot very matter-of-factly. Like, there wasn't a big show or whatever. It was just like, woman, your child is sleeping.
Right. After you've dragged it up here in a suitcase and it's been all hot and stuck in there with no crying.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
And it, apparently he during the war, I think it probably was in maybe about 1916, 1917, that the friars had notified him that their supply of bread was very, very low. They didn't have enough to sustain the friars, and they certainly didn't have enough to sustain the people that would be coming in. And it was their job to feed the people. So Padre Pio said, okay, fine. He left for a little while, and he came back, and he had baskets and baskets of bread. And so they said, well, Father, there's no bread anywhere around here. Where did you get it? And he said, I spoke to a friend.
It sounds to me, Marina, as though he did what Jesus has said we all can do, which is that I can do, so can you. And I think Pio just absolutely took that to heart. And wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely did. And just very a very humble man, that his room was very, very sparse. He didn't want a whole lot of things in there, and the head of the monastery had gotten a picture of Virgin Mary and put it sort of at the foot of his bed on the wall so that he could see it. And he thought that, no, it was too grand a thing for him to have. That, no.
Yeah.
And then they had to convince him. And he was finally told, look, you could see her face before you go to sleep. You could see her face when you wake up. this is someone that you can pray to. Okay,
Right.
all right. Under those terms, he said okay, but otherwise,
Yeah. Just
yeah.
take the fancy things around, the
Yes,
picture
yeah,
frame and all that stuff.
yeah, yeah. Didn't want any of that. And
Any
of course,
yeah.
yeah, the order itself, um, they followed the teachings of Saint Francis,
Oh,
and
well.
I've got it on here. Just a second.
Mhm.
The Capuchin friars' ideology is one of extreme poverty, strictness, and simpleness.
Wow.
So nothing fancy, nothing whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, he was the bilocation. He was at a gathering at one point, and at some point he just sort of sat down and put his head down, and people around him said, "Oh, leave him alone. He's resting. He's
Mm-hmm.
resting," and whatnot. And then a little while later, he came to again, and he carried on. And a few days later, he was visiting some of the parishioners in town, and one of them came up to him and said, "Oh, Padre Pio, thank you so much for coming the other day. We were, and I think it was his wife that was, on her deathbed or whatever." And Padre Pio said, or no, sorry, I got that wrong. Padre Pio was with the head friar.
Oh, okay.
And so they were talking to the head friar and saying, "Oh, thank you for sending Padre Pio to come down and pray with us and so on." And the fellow said, "No, I didn't do that because we were all at a meeting and he was at the meeting." And the guy said,
Uh-huh.
"Well, my whole family was here and he was here and he talked to us." And anyway,
Yeah.
so that just a lot of
Astounding.
wonderful, yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of wonderful miracles.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a little sort of on as I was doing this research. Um, I was doing it shortly after, probably within about 10-15 minutes of getting the email from Heather about not feeling well, and so I came across um, one prayer, and as I was reading it out loud, um, and where it said insert whatever,
Yes. Uh-huh.
so and I inserted Heather's name,
Ah.
and I felt really good
Mm-hmm.
after
Mm-hmm.
after that.
Mm-hmm.
And a little while later, I was talking to Val, and she said, "Oh yeah, Heather's feeling better."
Thank you, Padre Pio.
Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so
Wow. Yeah.
there's a lot. Um, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he used to say, and I thought this was really um, when it came to to worry. And now I'm not going to be able to find it because I
Oh, I
want it.
know.
Because I mean, that's just,
Oh, it's always the way. Yeah.
yeah, that's always the way. Oh, yeah, here it is right in front of me. Okay.
Okay.
His favorite saying was pray, hope, and don't worry. Worry is useless. God is merciful and he will hear your prayer.
Let it go. Let
Let
God
it
take
go.
care of it.
Let it
Yeah.
go. Let go, let God. And
Yeah.
that's, yeah, very often what we
What we say.
try to do is,
Yeah.
we pray for an answer and then we follow it up with how we'd like that answer to come in, when
Right.
it should be give it to
Highest good of
God,
all concerned.
period.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't put conditions on it. So
That
I
that
just
was something I learned. I remember learning when I was probably in midlife ages, that you have to actually just let it go for sure, but also
yeah,
say for the highest good of all concerned, because maybe what you want isn't for the highest good of everybody else concerned.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. exactly. And it's a tough one to learn.
It is.
We're,
It is.
we're everything around us wants to be controlled, right?
True.
So,
Yes.
yeah, and sometimes just
Not
let it go.
cost.
Let it go. Do not put limits on God. Do not put limits on the universe. Do not put limits on spirit.
Yeah.
Let them handle it. Just be ready to act.
So it's so interesting that when I had Gertrude Shue on talking about St. John of the Cross, and then Padre Pio, and of course the Buddha, who was the first one I did, all of these men, they gave up all the extra material life things and lived very, very simply. And in doing so, they took some of the burdens that we have, because we have burdens whether we realize it or not. We're thinking we got to pay our bill, we got to go to this, we got to do that. And these people don't have sort of bills to pay. In other words, they just live so simply that they were taken care of, and they allowed everything else to come through. And you can see so much similarity in these people. And it's understandable why they are these models of which we need to look up to. Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly. He was, because of course he was seen by doctors quite often who tried to manage the stigmata and whatnot. And the doctors often commented to the friars that were looking after him was, what does he eat? Like, we see what's on the plate. We see what he has consumed. It's barely enough to keep a bird alive.
Right. Right.
And how is he doing that? Considering that, these are open wounds that are
They're open wounds. That's right. He could have been infected or whatever. I don't sense that he worried about any of that.
No.
He just was hiding them because he didn't want to have to explain it, probably, to the people at first.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. And he didn't, and particularly because, this was something that was discovered, and he had wanted it to be between him and God.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
He didn't want to have to share it, but okay, he did. And apparently the anyone who had the pleasure of being at one of his masses said that it was transformative.
Oh, I bet it was. No, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Because I remember going to see the Dalai Lama here in Seattle, and there must have been 50, 60,000 people in this big place. But I was transformed just by being in his presence. And I mean, I wasn't bowing down to him or anything, but I revered him. And I just felt like he was somebody that I could look up to and want to be the model, a model for somebody.
Exactly.
Like that. Wow. That's awesome.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Do you know Carolyn Mace? MYSS, Carolyn Mace?
Yes.
She's a writer. She talks a lot about Padre Pio, because she was very Catholic. She grew up very Catholic. And that's how I first heard his name. And she said, she would say, Padre Pio says this and that and whatever. But she brings him up quite a bit in a lot of her books and teachings. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I had heard of him before, and then I'd sort of forgotten. And then when I saw it again on the list, it was like, oh my gosh, that just absolutely
screamed your name.
It's like, go no further. This is it, because his spirit was just one that you and like you say, it's with like the like anyone who is holy, who is has transcended, and when you're in their presence, you are lifted yourself. You have
your vibration can do nothing but
you have no choice. And I don't think that they attract the lower vibrations at all. They're too high up. The low ones can't reach up there. But and apparently it is said that he foretold his own death.
Oh wow.
Okay. And he died at 81.
Okay.
Which is
fairly old for that period of time. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So he's and the day that he passed, and actually a couple days before he passed, the stigmata went away. Absolutely, totally healed, no marks, nothing, nothing there.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
yeah, that morning he woke up and he put on his vestments and he said his prayer like he normally did. He sat down in his chair and he was still praying. And when they came in, he'd gone. He had passed.
Yeah. Beautiful servant of God, and was
Yes.
given the peace that he needed at the end. Wow, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
That's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it says here in this particular book that I have, which isn't very much, what you've given is beautiful information, and I appreciate all the work you did. Really, I do. It just says, you know, he helps us with eyesight, including blindness. He helps us with forgiveness, increasing the abilities of healers. So those of you who are out there that want to have an increase not only in healing, but spiritual growth or prophecy, he can do that for you if you call upon him. And yes, of course, you can also call upon him to help you with any situation like you did with Heather. I would say help me to help Jimmy Carter to completely forgive himself and to rest in the knowledge that he did his work here on earth. Yes. And reveal to him the light, love, and forgiveness of God. And thank you, Padre Pio, because Jimmy was, I mean, he almost could be a saint.
I know.
Yeah, not quite, but you know, he did a lot of things for so many people. He was just a beautiful individual. Yeah. So,
and especially after he left the presidency.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, and it was only recently that he stopped doing the Sunday school.
Habitat. I know, and Habitat for Humanity.
And Habitat. Yeah. So, you know, and he's 98. Yes. Yeah. I hope that I can accomplish.
I hope I know who I am when I'm 98.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So I am sure that with his faith and with his family around him,
he does have that.
No doubt that he's going to have a very peaceful transition.
I agree.
And but still,
so Padre Pio. Yeah, we'll call on Padre Pio to bring him his final resting and admiration for all his hard work. So.
Absolutely. And now I wanted to mention too, a lot of the information that I got from a couple websites, but one in particular, and that is the goodcatholic.com. Okay, so if anyone wants to go on there, they have a listing on there of prayers that you can say for,
and you don't have to be Catholic, right?
And you don't know. You don't have to be Catholic. You just, you know, if it's uncomfortable to say, you know, God and Jesus, say Spirit and the universe.
Right.
Absolutely. Ultimately, it's the same thing.
It is the same thing.
Just
different words. That's all.
Yes. Yeah. But I think I'm I'm going to be making him a regular part of my meditation, I think.
Wow, that's awesome.
I really like that, the energy and see if you can't
bring him through for us at some chance. Wow. You and Valerie, Zoom takeoff. Oh, that's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fantastic. So it was my pleasure to do that, and
thank you.
And just to kind of put the little pieces together and see how.
I think it's wonderful just even talking about these people and bringing the awareness to ourselves of these people that we may never have heard about before, but that are there for us and have helped other people. And their model is one of sacrifice and love and compassion. So
exactly.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you so much for bringing us in. All right.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, dear.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.